I quit smoking about 2 years ago. I haven't had any sort of nicotine product in my body since then, and it is quite literally one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life. I had previously quit drinking, and I knew that I had to quit smoking as well, and I have. I'm very proud of it, and I want to share that journey with you today. Like I said before, I had previously made a video talking about my sobriety, and I got a lot of questions pertaining to quitting smoking. I briefly alluded to it in that video, and now we're going to talk about my smoking journey. Let me really stack up my resume of smoking. I wasn't just a occasional smoker. I was a smoker. I smoked every single day of my life. I started smoking when I was, I definitely had my first cigarette by 17 years old. Like I mentioned in my drinking video, I wasn't a bad kid. I definitely had some transgressions in high school, but it wasn't anything that was so out of hand, anything that was worrisome. So I definitely started smoking early, but not to the point of doing it all the time. If it was offered to me, I would smoke. I graduated high school. I started working in a theater, and that puts me probably like late 19, maybe 20 years old. And around then was when I was around a lot of smokers. Also, I should say, I had smokers in my family, but not smokers that I was constantly around. Nobody in my immediate family was smoking cigarettes or any sort of nicotine product. So when I was doing theater, it was probably the first time that I was actively around smokers, actors or smokers. I felt like I was meeting people that I wanted to be around, and I felt like it wasn't necessary to do that, but there's always something that I say with smoking. The people that you go out and smoke outside with are usually people that you're gonna get along with. You all have that same sort of detrimental interior in you that you both know that you're destroying yourself, so you're gonna kind of bond over that. I was doing a lot of plays, so I was just smoking and hanging out. And then I moved to New York City. I was pretty young, and I pretty consistently started smoking then. I was working a retail job, and I remember I wouldn't buy a pack of cigarettes. I refused to buy a pack of cigarettes because to me that was too much of a problem at that point. I didn't think that anything that I was doing was an issue for my body. I didn't think that an occasional cigarette was bad. So I would always bum cigarettes off of people, which is a semi-annoying trait, but this is pre-COVID when people were so jovial and so excited to talk to you. I feel like people's interactions absolutely stalled. Post-COVID, people kind of forgot how to interact with people. Pre-COVID, everybody was just bumming cigarettes off of each other. I was going out, I was drinking like crazy, so I was smoking like crazy. There's always the person that smokes and they are a party smoker, right? Well, I was a mixture of both. I would smoke throughout the day, and then I would go out and I would drink and I would party. I've told all of my drinking stories in my last video. I would chain smoke. To me, when I was drinking and smoking, there was absolutely no consequences in the morning. There was nothing. So not only was I getting hammered on alcohol, but I was smoking, oh my gosh, 10 plus cigarettes a night. Easily. I would just sit and chain smoke. To me, it was a very temporary situation. There was no way in my mind that I was going to continue to be a habitual smoker like that. Well, that's how it happens, right? With every sort of addiction, you don't realize how addicted you are until you feel the pull of it. Now, for me, I wouldn't say that smoking was something that I needed a reason to do or felt a compulsion to do aside from I just wanted to do it. Like I have a lot of friends that are smokers that they use it as a stress relieving mechanism, or they're anxious, they need to have a cigarette. There's a lot of reasons that people attach themselves to cigarettes. For me, it was just, I wanted to do it. I loved that first pull of a cigarette. I loved that feeling, that nauseating feeling, the static through your fingers and through your whole body when you have that first drag, and it's just so intoxicating. To me, a cigarette was just the best feeling in the world. Fast forward, As I mentioned in my other video, my partying years, I partied for a very long time, and I was smoking consistently around then. And again, not equating it to being any sort of a problem, not equating it to being any sort of detriment to my health, just equating it to having fun, and eventually I'll be able to erase this in my life. But it gets to a point where you're doing it so frequently that it's not even a part of the curriculum of partying anymore. It just becomes a part of day-to-day life. When I was smoking, I was somebody else. I had an edge to me. I had a reason to go out and stand with the smokers. I had a reason to engage in conversation with people who I thought were cool, you know? And so that just eventually snowballed into actually becoming a smoker. I remember at my work, I was known as a smoker. Everybody knew me as a smoker. My voice definitely was affected by smoking. I was a little bit raspier. So everything about me was becoming a smoker. And before you know it, you're a smoker. A lot of my life was changed during COVID. I lost my job. I went on a huge road trip. I started drinking so much. And you have a lot of time to think about things, and that is when Oleg, my husband, he decided to quit smoking. I should say, we quite literally met over a cigarette. So we were smoking together. This was no problem. He's also from a different country, and I feel like their relationship to smoking is very different from the United States, also different types of cigarettes. So we were smoking together, and he decided to quit smoking right at the beginning of COVID. We were starting to kind of trickle out of it in January of 2020. By March 2020, when COVID hit, we went upstate to my parents, and he was quitting smoking. And I remember like finding a cigarette and smoking it, and I quit for 4 months. And then I went on that road trip that I've talked about with my drinking video, and I started smoking again. I was out in the West. I couldn't help myself. I wanted to feel like a cowgirl. So I started smoking again, and I started smoking with a vengeance. A little bit after that, I quit drinking, and I was still smoking because I needed to feel a relationship to being at parties. I needed to feel like I belonged, and for me, the only way to balance that out was to continue smoking, to continue to have a reason to show up and hang out with my friends, hang out in the hallway, hang out outside. That, for me, the rational decision was to continue smoking. So I started almost ramping up my cigarette intake. Fast forward a couple of months, I think it was a New Year's resolution to quit smoking, just quit. And I did it. I decided to quit, and I've been there ever since. So it's kind of a convoluted story. Hopefully you can follow along, but more I break down the little subgenres, you'll understand a little bit more of why. Why did I quit? Every time I smoked, I felt like I was losing a piece of myself. It got to the point with smoking that I felt like I was losing a portion of my day when I smoked. I felt like the moment that I put a cigarette in my mouth. I still felt that draw to it. I still felt that addiction, but I needed to stop smoking because the moment that oh my God, we just lost our light. The moment that I took that first drag, it like brought me back down. So every time that I was smoking, I was consciously thinking, wow, this is getting more and more horrible every single time that I smoke. I realized that I was getting wrinkly and old looking. Felt like I was dried out. I felt like I wasn't able to bounce back from things as quickly, and I just felt like I would look at people who had smoked for years and years and years and years, and I didn't want to have that kind of like very fragile looking skin. I'm not judging their appearance, I'm just saying I didn't want that for myself. Not only was I smoking cigarettes, but I was definitely starting to get into that vape trend. I think if there's one thing you could take away from this video, vapes are the devil's work. I've never felt more violently ill and so out of my body than when I smoked vapes. Never in my life have I felt so gross. Vapes are disgusting. And if you break them apart and look what's inside of them, it's horrible and horrifying and so scary that you're just actively puffing on them. So Vapes were kind of a reason that I wanted to quit smoking, because I knew that if I couldn't quit nicotine, I would keep going back to vapes because they were so accessible and so easy. That freaked me out so much. So much. I would get headaches all the time after hitting that vape. I'm gonna be honest, I started to get older and I realized that I gave myself this permission to smoke when I was young, and it was starting to just kind of switch into me becoming older and now actively being a smoker. You kind of start to realize that you're not impervious to things anymore. You're going to have health complications from being a smoker. You're going to notice that maybe your hair is graying faster, maybe your skin is drying out faster, maybe that cough that you had in the beginning of January is going to continue on until March. There's things that I started to notice health-wise that I wasn't happy with. The benefits of quitting. Everything. I mean, there's nothing that makes me feel better than knowing that I kicked that habit. Definitely have longer stamina. My skin felt a lot more potent, felt a lot more dewy and alive. My hair getting less sick. You don't smell. Your fingers don't smell anymore. Coming back from a party, I just remember having beer and smoke on my fingers, and that's so gross. Nobody loves that, although I did love the smell of cigarettes. I loved the smell of cigarettes. But now, since I've been so removed from smoking, I feel like I don't love it as much anymore. I'm changing and evolving. So let's talk about how I quit smoking. So I'm gonna kind of break this into what pertained to me, and I've talked to a lot of my friends that have since quit smoking and what worked for them. For me, the number one rule that I would suggest to follow is you mentally start to kind of check out of smoking, right? There's things that annoy you about it. There's things that make you second guess putting that cigarette to your lips. So for me, the one thing that kept me feeling like I needed to quit was how gross I felt. And in particular, the way that I keep on not going back to cigarettes, and I swear I'm thinking about it right now and it's hurting me. I would think, if I have a cigarette right now, I'm gonna wake up in the morning and I'm going to feel so hoarse in the back of my throat. I'm gonna feel like I just swallowed razor blades, because that is what I would feel like. I would smoke so much in a night that I would feel like it was sandpaper down the back of my throat. And that is like the singular most important way that I keep myself from not smoking. Truly, you have to kind of cut out these little shortcuts for yourself to remind you why you can't go back. That is my number one. That is the thing that keeps me from smoking again, is just remember the things that were so negative, bodily impacts that you had. Whether it's the smell on your fingers, whether it's your nails breaking off, whether it's your hair feeling gross, whether it's your breath stinking. Think of the thing that really made you kind of question, oh, why, maybe I should quit. Money is also a huge way to stop yourself from smoking. When Oleg and I were smoking, we were buying tobacco, we were buying packs sometimes. And in New York City now, it's $15 a pack. Depending on how much you smoke, that can be well over $100 a week. That's a lot that you can be putting towards something. Take yourself out to a nice meal. Money is a factor. Assessing long-term goals that you have for yourself with smoking. For me, again, I always kind of told myself, I don't want to be a smoker. I don't want to be a smoker. And I think just making sure that you constantly are reminding yourself, like if you're in the stages of quitting, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Do you see yourself as a smoker? Quitting smoking is such a solitary journey, and it's so annoying when people say you should really quit smoking. You should really quit smoking. It's like, I know that. I fully know that, and I will when it's my time. But you really have to know that you want to smoke, because if you're quitting for reasons that are not for yourself, you're never going to quit. You're never going to quit, and you might even get worse in it. Say you're quitting for a partner, you're going to start sneaking it probably. I know people that sneak smoking because they feel too guilty. It's such a thing that even more so than drinking is so normalized, it's so easy to drink. Smoking, everybody looks at you for being a smoker and kind of judges you already. So the guilt that you feel with being a smoker is already something that you have to keep in mind. So if I was to quit again, I would throw that all out and just listen to myself, which is kind of what I did. Now I'm going to talk about ways that I know that people quit and things that helped them. We're going to be talking about books. I have a friend of mine who quit because of Alan Carr. It's like How to Quit Smoking. I've never read it. Maybe it's a little bit culty. I don't know. Maybe it's really positive, but he said he read that book and he was a smoker for over 15 years, a heavy smoker. He said it changed his life, it worked, and he hasn't looked back since. I've heard that that works great. Maybe it's like Marie Kondoing of the non-smoking world. I also have friends that have quit cold turkey. I guess I was technically cold turkey as well. I have an aunt who smoked all her life. Her husband passed away, and I think just the immense grief that she had in her life, she never picked up a cigarette again. She just decided to quit in that moment. I think sometimes in moments of grief or moments of intense depression, you can kind of sense a shift in yourself, and maybe just listening to that is a great time to quit. I also have a friend who quit, and for him it was like a very oral fixation. He would chew gum and he would have toothpicks in his mouth all the time, so that the fixation of drawing your fingers up and pulling out and things like that, it was happening, but it was just with something much more positive. That's something that you definitely can do, just more of like from a mechanical standpoint. If it's something that you feel like you can't do on your own, I know New York City has this. I imagine maybe some other cities have this as well, but you can go online and there's some programs that they have that'll set you up with trying to talk to people to quit smoking. You can also find like nicotine not tablets, like a Tic Tac almost, if you feel like you need to have that as a resource to kind of wean yourself off. There are those options if it doesn't work as a solitary journey. If you do need more of a communal kind of reassurance to quit, there is that option as well. Oh, and my number one tip is do not give yourself the freedom to quit the whole week and then have like one cigarette a week. You will get back into smoking. That is exactly how I got back into smoking. You will quite literally get right back into smoking again because you are giving yourself the permission to do it. And soon it's going to turn into twice a week. Oh, I deserve it because I'm going out. I deserve it because I've had a tough day. You will immediately get back into it. To me, that is the stupidest way of trying to quit. Maybe it works for some people. I have not heard a single person that that's worked for. To me, that is just kind of dipping your feet into both pools and just deciding one of your shoes is only going to get a little bit wet. To me, it just like doesn't make sense. Don't do it. That's my suggestion. So I forget that I was a smoker, but it was such a huge part of my identity. It was something that I loved, and I don't judge people for smoking. Like I said, it was who I wanted to be. It was who I felt I needed to be. And now I just don't need to be that person anymore. And if you are a smoker, just think to yourself, why am I smoking? And do I want to continue to smoke? For me, my life is a lot better now that I don't smoke. Now that I don't drink. Now that I'm a sober person, I have so much time to just feel good in my body. You guys are wonderful. You're fabulous. Thank you so much for being here. Let me know if you've quit smoking, if you've kicked the habit for anything else. Maybe I'll continue with this sobriety sort of series. I hope that I reach a lot of people, and I hope that whatever you're going through, you can kick it. So, thank you so much for being here. I will see you in the next one.